Love the series as much
Thanks.
as you can love murder and betrayal and relentless egos on parade and so on and so forth. Uh, I love it.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I know. It's got no shortage of that.
Yeah, it's got no shortage of a lot of things. It's amazing what they cram into uh, not just a season, but an episode. And it's some shows are just like you could paint with one brush. This has got a lot of fine detail in there, which is with not just with the storytelling, but with the characters as well, which is always a joy to explore.
Yeah, it's it's so compact, there's so much to it and it's all so lean. And I notice myself when I'm watching shows that I'll check out at some point.
Mhm.
I'll check out. And honestly, Barry, is one of those shows where it's so difficult to check out because it just hooks you in and takes you on a ride. And before you know it, you feel like you watched a show that could be an hour long because it's just you know, that much going on.
Mhm.
And you didn't really blink once. So I think it has that power to it.
Yeah, and it comes to an end, and every single time the credits start rolling, you're like, no, no, wait, I want more. They have mastered the art of keeping you wanting more, which is what scares me though, that we're coming down to I've seen 7 episodes.
You've seen
So
seven. Okay. Yeah.
yes, there's not much left to see. And I'm like, wait, I'm not ready to say goodbye. This is it's not fair.
I know. Yeah, it is unfair. But I think it's the right call. I think
Sure.
it's kind of ending things um, it's ending things with its integrity intact. And there's only so many times where you can kind of paint yourself into a corner before you need to before you need to
Mhm.
actually kind of uh you know before you need to really start kind of like shaking things up. And I think a lot of shows are guilty of that, where they kind of build up the stakes and build up the stakes and then they deflate it. And Barry
Mhm.
doesn't do that. And so there's a shelf life of building up all these stakes without really kind of really addressing it.
To go back a little bit further, I was just curious what your origin story is. How did you get into acting? Was it like something through your family, were inspired by somebody or something?
Well, I grew up in a very kind of theatrical household of sorts. I mean, neither of my parents were professional actors, but they both did regional and community theater. So I was introduced to theater at an extremely young age. I mean, I don't recall this, but apparently when I was just a baby, like my parents were doing Jacques Brella's Alive and Well and Living in Paris, and they would put me underneath the piano to sleep while they had rehearsals. And so I guess I was in it at a very young age. You know but I think when I got into it, I was so shy. I was such a shy kid, and it was really difficult for me to kind of like start to feel comfortable on stage. But once I did, I was so excited, and this kind of shy part of me, which had always had the reins, was kind of now put aside so I could try all these different voices and all these different characters, and I had a blast. So I knew pretty early on that's what I wanted to do. And but that was my favorite thing, was character acting, pretty much.
And it comes into play here, of course. So do you recall what the original pitch was for you for NoHo Hank?
Well, I remember getting the appointment. My manager called me, and I think very fittingly, I was in a Bed Bath and Beyond. I was like in the kitchenware aisle, just kind of perusing and looking at cutting boards. And I got a call from my manager saying there's this Bill Hader project. It seems really cool, really smart. Check it out when you get home. And immediately I was already excited because I just love Bill so much. I've loved his work, even beyond SNL, Skeleton Twins, and I just think he's got great
Love
taste.
it.
And I read it. I immediately just I just fell in love with it. It's one of those things that you read and you don't read so much as just watch it unfold in your mind's eye. And I knew they were onto something really special. And the character was described as just this polite Chechen mobster. And I think I just had an idea of what that was. And so I kind of, came in with it. I didn't even really have that many lines. It was just a lot of listening and paying attention. But I feel like I tapped into something, or like earlier on, and
Mhm.
then began to kind of build it from there. But I just loved it. I just fell into it immediately.
So early on, Hank feels more like comic relief at the very beginning, and then you realize there's much more to him, and then we're gonna get to he's not going to be a small character. He's going to be a major pillar in this story. How much did you know, or how much did they provide you with early on, and like when did about his journey?
I mean, my character was supposed to die in the first episode.
Oh, jeez.
He was supposed to be shot through the windshield. Spoiler alert to anyone who has not seen the pilot. But yeah, it's
You had 4 years.
yeah, it was all gonna end there for Hank. But I think, Bill Hader and Alec Berg, they were both really enjoying what I was putting down, and we were really riffing a lot and just having fun. So yeah, in that scene where Hank gets shot through the windshield, Bill comes over to me and he's just like, "Can you just when you get shot, just open the door, like open the door of the car and just fall out to the side." Thus opening like an actual door to my
Yeah.
s- and yeah, and then since then it was just kind of, I don't know, it just all started kind of popping up organically. And I think that that was a huge part of their writing process, was just, having an idea of what they wanted to accomplish, but also being really open to just the best possible storytelling they could kind of drum up. And yeah, in that sense, it was extremely collaborative. Like I was more just along for the ride and excited what they were going to come up with, because they're absolute geniuses.
Yeah, it's well, one part of this the creation of this character is of course the voice, and I'm sure you get asked every single time someone speaks with you, you know, where did the voice come from? And I'm going to ask again because I don't know the story behind it. And my real question is, was it something that evolved? Did was it I guess just what's the origin story of Hank's voice?
Yeah, I think I came in with, I honestly can't remember what I came in with. I need to watch the audition tape again just to see like how far it's evolved. But yeah, I remember going down this YouTube rabbit hole, trying to like hear the accent. I actually worked with an accent specialist, to kind of get this accent. But it's also, what's interesting about that accent is this is a character who is, who's Chechen, so it's more of a Russian accent, but slightly different. And then he's also trying to be American, right? This is a
Mhm.
character who's desperately trying to kind of fit in Los Angeles. So there's this kind of spirit of Hank that is really excited and just trying to blend in. And I think that's one of my favorite things about the character, is that he's just, he wants to assimilate in a certain way, and yet he just ends up sticking out like a sore thumb.
He's a joy to watch, really. It's like every time he's on screen. Oh, well, I can't. I don't want to get into something that I just saw. There's a great moment in the end where there's four boxes, and I'm like, the way you play that out it's hilarious. It's just like, I mean, it just surprises me how well they can go so dark and and yet keep you laughing all the way through. It's
Yeah, it truly. I'm baffled by that as well. I mean, I think, yeah, it's one of those really incredible things, just tonally, that it can kind of go from, just being punched in the gut 1 second,
mhm.
to then really like laughing, like belly laughing in the next scene. And And it makes no sense why that should be the case, but it just does, and it all kind of fits neatly into the same package.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so true. And last season, we see this relationship with Cristobal start up. And this season, it starts off looking like you're going legit. Hank's on a new path. And then suddenly and quickly, it just horrifically ends. What did that relationship mean to Hank? Because he's tough to read.
I mean, I think, the relationship with Cristobal um meant everything, means everything to him. He Even from the very beginning, when Goron take has a phone call with Cristobal, and Cristobal brings up like the four agreements, and Hank is like, wow, that's a great book. Like immediately they're kind of, they're just on the same page and they're simpatico.
Mhm.
And I think, you see the evolution of their relationship, and at the same time there's this kind of there's this fact of the matter, which is that they're both involved in this extremely dangerous profession, right? And so I think, a lot of what Hank does is to protect the two of them. And it's like best laid plans. And I think it makes for some really intense television.
Yeah, and there's a very powerful uh, back and forth between the two when Cristobal says, "Who are you?" and you respond that you feel more like yourself than you ever have, and it makes me wonder who is, because you know those who've seen episode, was it 4, I believe,
Yeah.
uh, know the results, and like that's not what you'd expect, especially after all you've just said. Um, I'm just curious, who is NoHo, and what drives him
Well,
beyond,
yeah, I think, that's a great question, because I think, there's a few things at play, especially in that scene. And you kind of have to kind of back up a little bit to look at like Hank as this sweet, naive, um, kind of guy who's trying to be, a really pleasant, polite, sweet people pleaser of a gangster. And those two things are like diametrically opposed. You can't actually you can't be one in
Mhm.
you can't be that thing in this really dangerous profession. And so I think, Hank begins to get walked all over. I mean, even from, the very beginning, you kind of see Hank getting pushed by Barry. He doesn't like being called an idiot. It like flares something up in Hank. And that thing is really dangerous. But that ultimately it's like, I see a lot of people calling Hank a psychopath. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it takes something pretty twisted in someone to do something what happens in 4. But that being said, it's all coming out of pain, and it's all coming out of fear and these very real emotions. And that lends itself to the character's pathos. But, an important line I think that Hank has in that scene is, you have to make the tough decisions, because if you do not, then you get walked all over, you get taken advantage of. And I think that speaks, very prominently to just everything that Hank's been through. And he does not want to be taken advantage of anymore. He doesn't want to be seen as weak, or as, or as a fool. And so a lot of these huge responses are in response to that. Um, but yeah, but all in all, it's just like a really unfortunate thing, because they're both right. Neither character is
Mhm.
wrong, right? In that instance, it's just extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, it's amazing, like I was saying, how you where you start and where you finish, at least up to what I've seen, just the character arc and the development, the time they put into making Hank more than just, because that happens a lot. You have a guy, someone with an accent or something, then they pretty much just come in, deliver their line, people get a good chuckle, and they
Right.
move on.
Yeah,
And
a
there's just so
flavor.
much more
Yeah.
to him.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you like him? Do you like Hank?
I love Hank. I love Hank. I mean, I feel like it's an important job as an actor to kind of really love the character that you're playing, and even if you don't necessarily agree with all the choices that they make, you have to kind of find this empathy and this connection. But yeah, I love Hank. I love, you know playing this character. And there is, there is an element of like, yeah, we go to really dark places with this show, but it's given me an opportunity to just play such a huge range, right? To being this kind of, like lovable goofball, and then also, to find, you know, how he's in pain or what he really yearns for, and how he is dangerous, and how he is, um, just a really kind of, like a really kind of wounded character. And so that's where the pathos comes from. And
Mhm.
yeah, I love him. I love playing him.
Would you go to Dave and Buster's with him?
Like, I don't know. I mean, I was like, I don't know who else I'd want to go to Dave and Buster's with, but like Cristobal is like, it's like, if you're gonna go to Dave and Buster's, you got to go with that powerhouse couple.
And last season, you had this amazing scene where almost all of it was told just by the reaction in your face and some sound effects with the lion. It was
Yeah,
just incredible and unexpected, which is another thing about the series I love, is it doesn't rest on its laurels ever. Every time you think you know what's going to happen, it gives you a twist, a turn, or elevates the level of complexity in the
yeah.
storytelling, and it makes it something much more to chew on than you would ever expect from the premise and the name. Was that the toughest scene for you? And if not, do you have one that stands out?
I mean, it's so funny. I wouldn't really categorize it as tough because it was just such a joy. Like, it was demanding. It was
Mhm.
certainly demanding, to kind of be in this heightened emotional state. And then just technically, when you're an actor, I mean, you have to uh, keep this emotional state for as long as you're shooting that scene, right? And so you have to be able to drum it up on call. And so, but at the same time, I was just so excited by it. I was so excited by the scene and how Bill was shooting it. And Bill and I worked really well together. So he was like, right in front of my face, giving me kind of like the audible calls of what was happening. And it was a real acting exercise to just respond, and like allow my imagination to kind of filter it all out, and yeah, just experience it as it was unfolding. But the scene with Michael Irby in four just came out. That was an incredibly rewarding scene as well, just because it was, I mean, again, so demanding,
Mhm.
so intense, but yeah, you don't get scenes like that very often. And so we just ate it up. We really did.
Yeah, it's great to watch because it's not just Bill's character or your character. So many of these characters, Sarah's,
Oh,
Sally, gets
yeah.
so much to play with. It's a joy to watch, you know, actors dig in deep and create these characters that you don't really, it's like, do I like them? A lot of people, it's very conflicting as to, you
It
know,
is.
do,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to feel here?
Yeah,
But
it really does
it's a
subvert
joy
your
to watch.
expectations. Yeah, for sure. And everyone in the cast just brings their A game,
Mhm.
and confuses you and makes you kind of like hate them one episode and then really feel such compassion for them the next episode. It's pretty
Sure.
masterful.
Do you think there's any chance, any way for these characters to be redeemed? It seems so many have displayed such
Yeah.
excessive dark
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah, there's the potential for each of them to be redeemed for sure. It's but like you really kind of yeah, you could just it's one of those things that, I mean, I don't know, like all the other actors are just like, no, 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 no one can be redeemed. It's like, they've all crossed a certain threshold. But I don't know, but um I think that there's always the potential. There's always the potential for yeah, for learning your lesson, and being honest with yourself, I think.
And as this wraps up, is there something you're gonna miss most about the series?
I'm gonna miss going to work every day with the most incredible crew and cast and creators, and it never feeling once like work. It always feeling like we are there to just explore and play and have a good time. And I've never experienced a set that has been so well run and so fun to be on while we were doing such intense shit.
Mhm. That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I'm gonna miss that for sure.
That's awesome. And, you know, like it shows on the screen. You know, your performances. You can see the passion, which is always a huge plus for the audience.
Thanks.
So I want to touch upon something else really quick because I'm a
Yeah.
fan of Bill and Ted,
Oh,
and
cool. Yeah.
I I really enjoyed Dennis McCoy and what you brought to him. Uh, just curious, what was it like being part of that? Were you a fan of the series beforehand, or was it?
Huge fan.
Oh, okay, awesome.
When that came across my desk, uh, it was like I was like, "Yep, yes, absolutely." And what was funny is I was offered that role, the role of the robot, and it didn't really have. No, I don't think anyone really knew what it was, right? I think the creators were like, we'll see like what this is. Just what do you got? And I had a field day coming up with this character, and it's a little terrifying to not know what you're going to be doing, but I had such a good time, and it was like, I mean, there's nothing better than um making Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves up. Like that's one you just like, yes. It feels
That's
great.
fantastic. And going back to your origin story, you got to create another voice. You know, this his speech pattern and the way that's everything about the character. The
Yeah,
lines read the wrong way would be nothing, but the way your pauses, your awkward stares to the side, you know, it's just so much about the character. It's just it's just a
totally.
joy to watch again.
Yeah, and it's like drastically different from Hank, and I think
Yeah,
that's
oh,
exciting
completely.
too. Is I love stretching myself in different directions, and there's nothing better in my mind when someone's like, "Wow, I had no idea that was you," and it's kind of a great thing to disappear into a character that way, to kind of just become a chameleon.
Well, that was me. I try not to watch trailers and everything too much. I don't like to dig in early. I like to dig in
Totally.
after I get to enjoy it and see it with fresh eyes. And I watched this. I'm like, who's Dennis? And I look at him like, oh my God, you know, it's Anthony. Fantastic. And it's a joy also when I've been using that word a lot, but it's really strange to say use joy so much with Barry, but it really is a joy to see when your worlds collide, when you're like, oh wait, this person's to hear you're a fan too of Bill and Ted's is
Oh
just a
my
lot of
God.
fun for me.
Yeah, I remember like renting the VHS tape all the time,
Mhm.
and then eventually owning it on VHS. But yeah, it was just like and then like looking at a phone booth in just like this magical way and being like, whoa, like what if? I mean, I think, I don't know, like everyone tried to time travel in a phone booth back when those actually
Sure.
existed.
I mean, I don't know how many times I'll be, if you pass a Circle K, you have to quote it. If you say, sir, all these different things happen, you're like, I have to drop it. No one knows what I'm
Yes,
talking about.
you have to drop it. I mean,
Yeah, it's
something
it's
is.
wrong not to.
Yeah, exactly. If you say it, it is so.
So let me close out with an easy one. Making a double header, and I'll give you some extra points if you're willing to use Hank's voice for half of it. I was
Okay.
curious, 3 words to describe NoHo Hank from your perspective, and then 3 words from Hank's perspective.
Wait, okay. Describing Hank from my perspective and then describing
Yes,
him from Hank's perspective.
yes.
Okay. So I would describe him, Anthony would describe Hank as um considerate, polite, and fashionable. And let me see. Hank would describe Hank as great host. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's 2 words, but
That's a hyphen. We'll use it as a hyphen.
yeah. So hyphenate that one. I'm not counting hyphenate as a word. Okay. I would also say flair, right? Because whoever said fashionable just then, it's like that's a bit basic. All right. Let's get the flair going. And then last thing is, let's be real, he's complicated, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on there, don't judge, don't hate until you walked, a kilometer in his shoes.
Absolutely love it.
All right, cool.
100 points. And I'll say it again. It was a joy to speak to you.
Cool.
Getting to enjoy the series and the films that people do is one thing, but getting to talk to somebody and hear what goes through your mind and then how much of you is on that screen makes it all the more rewarding.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely. Great talking to you. Thank you.
And be excellent to each other.
Oh, absolutely.